All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about one of the biggest, most complicated questions of our time. Where exactly does human creativity end and artificial intelligence begin? It's a massive debate that's unfolding right now, right at the intersection of AI and ownership. And India? Well, India's stepping into the ring with a really bold new blueprint.
I mean, just think about it for a second. When an AI model, like a chat GPT or a mid-journey, trains itself on billions of images, articles, and songs from across the internet, what is it actually doing? Is it just learning, kind of like a student reading books in a library? Or is it committing copyright theft on a scale we've never seen before? This is the legal and ethical minefield that governments all over the world are trying to figure out right now. And that's exactly what brings us here today. A special committee working under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has just released a working paper on this very topic, AI and copyright. And their goal is huge. They're trying to build a framework that protects creators without completely choking off the AI innovation that could literally define our future. So to really get our heads around this, we're going to break it down. We'll start with the legal mess we're in, then we'll look at the two sides of the debate. After that, we'll unpack India's proposed solution, see how it actually works, compare it to what other countries are doing, and finally, look at what comes next.
Okay, first things first. Let's set the stage. Why is this even a legal problem to begin with? Well, it's because AI is pushing two really fundamental legal ideas right to their breaking point. So let's talk copyright. Under India's Copyright Act from 1957, if you create something original, you get the exclusive rights to say who can copy it, who can store it, and who can adapt it. Now, think about an AI developer. When they scrape millions of images to train their model, they are, by definition, reproducing and storing that work. The huge question is that legal? And that's where this idea of fair dealing comes into play. You can think of it like this. Fair dealing is what allows a movie critic to show a short clip in their review. But what if an AI doesn't just watch a clip, but ingests every movie ever made? That's the giant gray area. You see, Indian law doesn't have a specific rule for what's called text and data mining, or TDM, which is just the fancy term for how AIs learn from tons of data. And that ambiguity, that's the heart of this entire battle.
And this isn't just theory, believe me, it's happening right now. Just look at the ongoing court case between the news agency ANI Media and OpenAI. ANI is arguing that OpenAI broke copyright law by training its models on their news articles. OpenAI's defense? It's probably going to be that what they did was a form of fair dealing. How this case turns out could set a massive precedent for everyone. So that brings us to the debate itself. You've basically got two camps. On one side, you have the creators, the artists, writers, musicians. And on the other, you have the AI developers. And you know what? Both sides have really strong, really valid points. When you zoom out, it's really a clash between two big ideas: protecting the value of human work versus fueling the engine of technological progress. Let's dig a little deeper into what each side is saying. Okay, so from the creator's perspective, the fears are very real. They're saying, look, if our life's work is just hoovered up for free to train a commercial product, it completely devalues what we do. They're asking for two simple things: consent and compensation. They're also pointing out that sometimes these AI models don't just learn, they memorize and can spit out work that's almost identical to the original. And then there's the million-dollar question. If an AI makes something that rips off my work, who do I sue? The user? The company? It's a legal mess. But then on the other side of the coin, you have the developers. And this quote from the government's paper really nails their argument. They say that to build AI that's actually effective, safe, and not biased, you need to train it on absolutely massive and diverse data sets. If you force them to get a license for every single article or image, well, that's not just impractical, it's impossible. It would totally kill innovation and mean only the biggest tech giants could even afford to build AI. So you've got these two powerful forces locked in a standoff. How on earth do you move forward? Well, this is where the Indian government's proposal comes in, and it's an ambitious attempt to cut right through this legal knot. The committee gave their solution a pretty catchy name: the One Nation, One License, One Payment hybrid model. And that name tells you everything you need to know about the goal here: to create one single streamlined nationwide system. So, how would it work? Well, in theory, it's a pretty straightforward four-step process. First, AI developers get a kind of universal hall pass, a blanket license to use any lawfully published work for training. Second, for that privilege, they have to pay a royalty. Third, a new central organization collects all that money into one big pot. And fourth, that money gets distributed back to the creators. It sounds simple, right? But as always, the devil is in the details. All right, let's pop the hood and get into the nitty-gritty. How would the system actually work day to day? So the absolute heart of this whole model is a new entity they're calling CRCAT for short. The best way to think of it is as a central clearinghouse, or maybe like a single collections agency for all of AI. This one nonprofit body would be in charge of collecting payments from every AI company in the country and then figuring out how to get that money to the right creators. Now, this is a really clever part of the proposal. How do the AI companies pay? Instead of a massive upfront licensing fee that would crush any new startup, the committee is suggesting a royalty, specifically a small percentage of the AI system's gross revenue. It's a pay-as-you-grow model, and honestly, that could be a total game changer. It could make India a super attractive place for AI startups by getting rid of that huge initial cost. Okay, and this is probably the most radical and controversial piece of the whole puzzle. Under this proposed system, creators would not be able to opt out. If your work is legally available online, say on your blog or portfolio, it can be used for AI training, period. This is a massive policy choice. It's basically saying that for the good of national innovation, we're prioritizing broad data access over an individual creator's right to say no. Instead of consent, they get compensation. So you might be wondering, is this idea from India totally out of left field? How does it compare to what other countries are doing? Let's put it into a bit of a global context. This table breaks it down really nicely. You've got a few different models out there. On one end, you have voluntary licensing, where AI companies have to negotiate with every single creator. As you can imagine, that's incredibly slow and expensive. Then you have places like the EU and Japan. They have a TDM exception, which allows AI training for things like research, but, and this is key, creators can opt out. India's model is a third way. It's mandatory. It's designed for maximum access for developers while trying to guarantee some form of payment for creators. It's a system built for balance, not for individual control. Okay, let's bring it all home. What are the big takeaways here, and what could this all mean for India's place in the global AI race? When you strip everything else away, this entire working paper is an attempt to solve one fundamental problem. It's a high-wire act. The goal is to walk that incredibly fine line between making it easy and legally clear for developers to innovate, while also making sure the creators whose work fuels that innovation get a fair slice of the pie. So, for anyone studying this for policy or, say, getting ready for an exam, these are the absolute must-know keywords. You've got the hybrid model with its one nation, one license mantra. You have the shift to statutory remuneration rights, which means payment instead of permission. There's the central role of the CRCAT, of course, the critical no opt-out rule. And you have to know how this whole thing contrasts with the TDM exceptions you see elsewhere. The whole point of this entire structure is to create legal certainty and super easy data access. And that leaves us with the big open question, because right now, this is all just a proposal. It's out there for public feedback. So is this the visionary framework that's going to make India a global AI superpower? Or, by taking away a creator's right to say no, does it risk damaging the very creative ecosystem that these AIs need to exist in the first place? The answer to that question is going to shape India's digital future for decades to come.